Welcome back to our daily Bible study. I'm Matthew Gage, pastor here at Faith Baptist Church, sitting in my office right now recording this. And today we'll be in Genesis number 7, chapter number 7, Genesis 7. So we will jump right on in. Now, where we left off last week in Genesis 6, we had God looking down on the pre-flood world, seeing the sinfulness of man, sending judgment down, or proclaiming that judgment will come, but then looking and seeing Noah and his faith and the command for Noah to build an ark in preparation for the coming judgment, so that he and his family would be safe through it. And that's where we begin, is in chapter number 7, verse number 1, is Noah has built the ark, and so now we're going to see judgment come in this chapter. Genesis 7, verse 1. And the Lord said unto Noah, Come thou and all thy house into the ark, for thee have I seen righteous before me in this generation. Of every clean beast thou shalt take to thee by sevens, the male and his female, and of beasts that are not clean by two, the male and his female. Of fowls also of the air by sevens, and the male and the female, to keep seed alive upon the face of all the earth. Now, I'm going to pause right there before I continue to verse number 4. But a little detail that's here that you often don't see represented in the little kids' books and things like that, talking about Noah's Ark, is this idea that there are some animals taken not by two, but by sevens. Why is that? Well, note that these are the clean animals, and so they're going to be used for sacrifice, for food. So if you just had 2 sheep and you need one for a sacrifice, or you're going to eat mutton that night, they're not going to last very long. So there's actually extra of these that are taken beyond the 2 by 2 that we normally see depicted. Verse 4. For yet 7 days, and I will cause it to rain upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights, and every living substance that I have made will I destroy from off the face of the earth. So the countdown begins, 7 days. And Noah did according unto all that the Lord commanded him. And Noah was 600 years old when the flood of waters was upon the earth. So we begin verse number 7 here. We have Noah, and the timing has been given, and the command has come that we're 1 week out from the flood happening. So we have these events. And Noah went in, and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with him, into the ark because of the waters of the flood, of clean beasts and of beasts that are not clean, and of fowls and of everything that creepeth upon the earth. There went in two and two unto Noah into the ark, the male and the female, as God had commanded Noah. And it came to pass after 7 days that the waters of the flood were upon the earth. So Noah entering into the ark, the animals there with him, and note it's still a whole other week before the waters begin to come. Verse 11. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, the 17th day of the month, the same day were all the fountains of the great deep broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened, and the rain was upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. Now, I'll pause there real quick. Now, earlier when we were talking about creation, back in the very first one, we talked about how the water was divided and there was water above, water below. And here we have where that system is broken. This is a cataclysmic change that happens, I believe, on earth. And so that's where does the flood waters come from? Well, evidently there was some above, there's some below, and it is all now coming down or coming up upon the earth. Verse 13. In the selfsame day entered Noah and Shem and Ham and Japheth, the sons of Noah, and Noah's wife, and the 3 wives of his sons with them, into the ark. They and every beast after his kind, and all the cattle after their kind, and every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth after his kind, and every fowl after his kind, every bird of every sort. And they went into the ark unto Noah, verse 15, let's start over. And they went in unto Noah into the ark, 2 and 2 of all flesh, wherein is the breath of life. And they that went in male and female of all flesh, as God had commanded him, and the Lord shut him in. Now, some of this I know is repeating, but it's just bringing in the gravity of the situation, the details of the situation, driving home that the world is being destroyed, but Noah and his family, these 8 people, his 3 sons, their wives, Noah and his wife, these 8 people are on board the ark, that the animals are there. And then, of course, the wonderful detail, the Lord shut them in and has kept them safe. It's not that Noah and what he did is keeping them safe. The Lord is protecting them. Verse 17. And the flood was 40 days upon the earth, and the waters increased and bare up the ark, and it was lift up above the earth. And the waters prevailed and were increased greatly upon the earth, and the ark went upon the face of the waters. And the waters prevailed exceedingly upon the earth, and all the high hills that were under the whole heaven were covered. 15 cubits upward did the waters prevail, and the mountains were covered. So that detail, of course, we talked about the cubits last time being roughly 18 inches. So we're looking, about 22 feet right there at least. So that's above the highest mountain peak. So say, well, is that Everest? Is that Kilimanjaro? What mountain is that? I think it's a very different place, a very different topography on the world before the flood. So I don't know if the mountains were as big. Regardless, even if you had been a human or an antelope or a zebra and you had tried to survive the flood, if you had sought out the highest hill possible and climbed to the very peak, you would have still had 20 feet of water above you, preventing you from reaching to the air. Verse 21. And all flesh died that moved upon the earth, both of the fowl and of cattle and of beast and of every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, and every man, and in whose nostrils was the breath of life, of all that was in the dry land died. Verse 23, and every living substance was destroyed which was upon the face of the earth, both man and cattle and the creeping things and the fowl of the heaven, and they were destroyed from the earth. And Noah only remained alive, and they that were with him in the ark. And the waters prevailed upon the earth 150 days. We can't even hardly imagine the scale of this. We talk about an apocalyptic type event. That's what we have here. I mean, an entire world being changed, a reset happening to creation. And I mentioned before, I think in the previous session, that talking about creation science will talk often about the creation of the world, but also the flood and how the flood changed the world. Now, they'll say, well, where's the evidence of it? I'd say the Grand Canyon is evidence of it, that there's plenty of evidence of a mighty flood that entered into this world. By the way, fossils. How does a fossil get made? A fossil gets made when some type of animal or creature is buried under silt, under dirt, under mud, and then there's great pressure put on top of that as it ossifies, as it becomes, ossifies, that's not the right term, but anyway, as the rock calcifies, I think that's the word I'm thinking of, as it becomes stone, and those type of events, what do they require? They require being covered with mud or dirt, and they require great pressure. Both things are explained by the ark, or by the flood. So there's a number of things we could look at, and I would recommend doing some research on that. Like I said, trying to keep these brief. I don't want to get too sidetracked into some of those theories and wonderful ideas. But when you look around this world, I think there's a lot of evidence that this truly happened. Where I live here in Texas, you can go over not too far from where I'm at, actually, probably about a mile and a half or so. And the city is kind of up on a hill. And on the west side of the hill, there's a place called Sunset Hill. And I've been over there hunting fossils before, actually with a school group when I was younger. And here we are, miles and miles and miles and miles and miles and miles and miles, hundreds of miles away from the ocean. And yet on the side of this hill, there are fossils. And they said, well, millions of years ago, there used to be a ocean here, or there could have been a flood. To me, the flood is a great explanation for so many things. And I can tell you also stories, people, climbing mountains and finding fossils on top of mountains. People in Colorado hiking and things tell me that, they'll find fossils and stuff on these high altitudes. And how did that happen? Because there was a flood. Why are there dinosaur bones? Because there was a flood. So I think there's plenty of evidence to this. And so I'm going to quit rambling on that. I'm sure I'll probably get some nasty comments about those opinions in the scriptures from those who deny the biblical account. But anyway, it's some interesting stuff, and I'd be more than happy to share some different sources and people you can look at for some more information on that subject. So anyway, that wraps up chapter number 7. We have the flood upon the earth, Noah, his family, the animals that are saved, all in the ark, and we will see what happens afterward next time when we get in chapter 8. So I appreciate you watching. Hope it's been a help and a blessing to you.